So we kick off the start of what should be the 4th month here with Secret Invasion number 4. Now my reason for phrasing it like that is, well, you'll see near the end. Last time, Skrull Spider-Woman was telling Iron Man that he's been a Skrull this whole time, and the casual murder of the Initiative in New York prompts the arrival of Nick Fury and his small army of heroes that he's trained. Things kick off this issue with something for everyone that couldn't get enough of it in Illuminati number 1, the Skrulls once again stretching Reed Richards clearly beyond tolerable limits. And this time, it's not even clear if it's for scientific reasons or just because they want to hurt him. All while someone monologues about the humans freaking out in the face of what is inevitable. And continuing as we see Sentry freak out some more and Ms. Marvel arrive in New York for the fight that we've already seen her fighting. This is kind of shaking my faith in the reading order. We see that before she was fighting this solo, Fury's group was indeed on hand, there to try to extract the ill-fated heroes who are slowly being executed to demoralize the human race and get us to admit that I, for one, welcome our new lumpy-chinned overlords. After Fury's group is done, Fury himself shoots Ms. Marvel, convinced that she's a Skrull. I guess he had the same confusion I had from the last video. Well, it turns out the one that has been narrating this whole time is none other than Skrull Spider-Woman, as part of her brainwashing of Tony Stark. But luckily, Black Widow is on hand to intervene, first gunning down Phoenix and the beast that we had seen in Wonder Man in that one-off. Yep, he was indeed a Skrull, in case you were wondering. Spider-Woman knows when the jig is up and takes off before she gets a bullet, as Widow is ready to shoot anyone but herself and Tony. That even includes the real Wolverine before she accepts that he's the genuine article. During all this, some not-heroes are planning to join the NYC fight against the Skrulls. Brand, the green-haired agent in the sword, discovers what happened to Mr. Fantastic, and someone looking like Captain America spots someone looking like Thor appearing, and cliffhanger. This issue brought to a focus what was gradually becoming clear to me about Bendis and his approach to this series. It is so very much invested in setting things up. Illuminati? Setup. The pre-invasion tie-ins? Setup. The events in Mighty Avengers? Setup. The New Avengers? More setup. And here, the longest continuous event is Black Widow's interruption. The rest is, you guessed it, setup. Fury is pulling people out to set up for the team's next act. This new faction willing to join in with the Hood is setting up. Brand, set up. Jarvis, set up. And the ending obviously sets up. I was having trouble getting a handle on why that was bothering me until this issue, when it really just hit home. Secret Invasion so far is about talking about the past and the future and practically no interest in the present. The story doesn't feel like the culmination of a plot anymore. It feels like it starts and stops. Usually the core book is where I would expect to find a big picture view of the events, but it's so zoomed out that it doesn't feel like it contains enough actual story. It's setting up promises more, but at this point, it's starting to feel that these are just hollow promises. This brings us to Mighty Avengers 16, and we quickly discover that Elektra was the one who attacked the raft, causing the breakout that occurred in New Avengers number 1, and he did so because he was hired by Elektra. Apparently she just picked the next name in the phone book after hers. But yes, as promised, this issue is about Elektra, although at this point in time, Elektra is a Skrull who is in control of the Hand. To show this, we cut to several months earlier when Elektra is attacked by a Skrull already wearing her face. The Skrull first tries to out-assassin the assassin, but Elektra's just too good for her, forcing the Skrull to break out with a bunch of extra powers as well to overwhelm Elektra. Too bad that's still not enough. How about that? Looks like Elektra is more than a spankable ass after all. What a surprise, huh, Bill Jamis? So a fake Daredevil and Wolverine, both you might remember are associates of Elektra, are sent in next, but she can quickly see that they are not the real deal. So they break out with their extra powers as well. You know, like Wolverine needs extra powers. How many times has he been retconned? So she kills them too. But by now, she's taken enough damage and been exhausted fighting 3 Super Skrulls that an ambush by a 4th Super Skrull puts her down for the count. Skrull Elektra is then shown meeting with the Queen, fake Spider-Woman, where it is implied that the discovery of her Skrull corpse is going to be a necessary part of the invasion plan. So, she's got something to look forward to. This fake Elektra, whom I'll just call Elektra for simplicity, then returns to interrupt a meeting between the Hand and Hydra, and is disgusted. Like Japan would ever stoop to working with Nazis. So she kills the leader and takes over, putting her in position for the big corpse reveal and the end. The thing about these one-shot issues is that they can often be enjoyable. This is a great chance to see Elektra in action, especially the severity of the fights that she gets into. Fighting a ninja assassin with the powers of Ghost Rider plus turning to stone and optic blasts? It shows how potent of a fighter she is, with someone with no powers can face an alien with multiple ones and still emerge the victor 3 times. The filling in the blanks is also a good thing. It's just, once again, it shows how disjointed this all is, and the way that the past and the future are far more important to Bendis than the here and now. Case in point, the next issue jumps back to the story of Hank Pym again. And does the Elektra stuff have any bearing on it? Of course not. They're all right stories, but this is a ramshackle. No wonder the reading order I have is so pointless. I'd probably throw up my hands in defeat as well. Our next issue is X Factor 33. If you're not familiar, originally X Factor was the original 5 X-Men. Until the completion of the Shadow King story arc across the X books and the return of Professor Xavier, it basically allowed them to create 2 main X-Men teams with all the various stragglers that had been collected. Rather than cancel X Factor at that point or retitle it, the series effectively relaunched with Havoc, who had been with the X-Men before the team disbanded, Polaris, his lover, Quicksilver, an on-again, off-again Avenger, Wolfsbane, a new mutant member who didn't join X-Force because I guess 1 Beast Girl is fine, 2 is a fetish, and Guido, who was Lila Cheney's bodyguard and didn't even have a superhero name, so he picked out Strong Guy to effectively sum up his role. The final member was Jamie Madrox, aka Multiple Man, a character who clearly fascinated the book's new writer, Peter David, as Madrox is an ordinary man whose power is to become a lot of ordinary men. He is simultaneously one of the most and least powerful metahumans there are, and he presents a complex metaphysical issue about the nature of his duplicates. So at this time, long after the book with X Factor as a government superhero team was shelved, Madrox has taken the center of a team book focused on X Factor investigations, his private detective agency. Layla, whom Daisy Johnson tried to recruit into Nick Fury's team way back in Mighty Avengers, is actually part of their little group. They're currently set up in Detroit and are being hired to look for a mutant named Darwin, who at that moment is hanging out with former X-Men Longshot. Only, it's not Longshot, it's a Skrull. A Skrull being stalked by a woman who eventually spots her. She tells her partner Jennifer over a radio before getting into a firefight, only to get ambushed by another member of X Factor, Monet, where the woman reveals to Monet that she too is a Skrull. Before I reflect upon this, let's move on to our next issue, She-Hulk 31, because the Jennifer that the Skrull aggressor spoke to is none other than She-Hulk. At this time, She-Hulk is working as a bounty hunter and is only too happy to get into a fight with Monet, as Monet is legendary for her insufferable sense of superiority. So when Monet realizes from She-Hulk's confusion that she hasn't come here for Darwin, she states with a clear tone that this fight won't happen, as it's pointless since their goals clearly aren't in opposition, so only a fool would continue the fight. So She-Hulk tears open a fire hydrant which sprays Monet, who is willing to be the fool to continue this fight. She-Hulk's Skrull partner is Jacinda, and a flashback explains that Jacinda knew about the invasion and is trying to thwart it. She doesn't want the Skrulls to conquer the Earth. It would ruin her life. And hey, I wouldn't mind if someone had a selfish reason for saving the world so long as they're saving the world. So let's go. Jacinda has come to pick up Longshot because he is not just any Skrull. He is the Talisman, basically the Space Pope. If he's here, then the Skrulls have a sense that their gods are blessing their endeavor. But if something were to happen to him, then their morale would be devastated. That's the plan, and X Factor would have probably turned a blind eye to that, and She-Hulk, if she had just explained it. But She-Hulk just can't stand Monet's sense of condescending superiority, so she fights her, and Strong Guy, and even an army of Madroxes. I like her summary of his power. You're a boring guy who turns into a lot of boring guys. Meanwhile, Jacinda has been thwarted by Darwin, but she's accused Longshot of being a Skrull. Monet says, nah, he's the real Longshot, and Darwin says of course he is, because if Longshot were a threat, then Darwin's adaptive power would give him an ability to help him deal with that, like, say, to force him back into Skrull form. Which is exactly what happens. And the Talisman makes his displeasure known at this. This brings us then to X Factor 34. Well, not actually, but we have 2 out of 3 parts of a storyline, and I, for one, see no need to wait until next month for the conclusion. The Talisman has been revealed, but he tries to sweet-talk Darwin into being on his side anyway, claiming that Darwin represents a potential bridge between Skrulls and humans. He gives quite the sales pitch, but by now, She-Hulk has overpowered the army of Madroxes and runs off to join in, the rest of the team on the way to help Darwin. The Talisman is a tough hombre, as Jacinda points out. His powers are drawn from his faith, the unity of the Skrull religion while Earth is fragmented. Some believe in Jesus, some believe in Allah, and Cher believes in life after love. But Monet inspires Darwin to evolve to resist the Talisman's power, allowing an opening for She-Hulk to come in and knock the Skrull out and take him prisoner. Although who to deliver him to is a mystery, seeing as how there are so many Skrulls in positions of power now. Technically, these 3 parts are spread out much more, but to hell with it, there's no reason for it. Nothing cosmic happens between parts, and frankly, this has been difficult for me to talk about because when you have one little snippet of a story and none of the follow-through, what is there to say? Beyond the immediate. At least with Age of Ultron, the unfolding allowed me to compare and contrast how the story was evolving across books. But not here, oh no. This is a real grab bag. So much for a reading order. Anyway, I really liked this crossover. Peter David does a good job of taking 2 very different books that he's working on and finding ways to seamlessly overlap them. And for this event, that's extra impressive. With a book, you spend a lot of time in the head of the main character, so having the same writer give how an outsider sees them is a nice shakeup, because that isn't always flattering, this being a good example. She-Hulk is the mainstream A-player fallen from grace, now having to slum it with the mutants. Monet's flight ability makes it all the easier for her to look down on others. Madrox is playing at a level that he's not physically built to play at because he happens to have the power to make a lot of equally unimpressive people. Guido is, well, okay, he's Guido. Yet they're on parallel missions to find someone, She-Hulk to capture, X-Factor to save. The conflict between the 2 groups is unnecessary, but both are equally at fault for it taking place. Monet jumping the gun, She-Hulk from not wanting to just let it slide. The hint that this is more than just a random run-in with Skrulls also helps the story feel more relevant. I'm fine with it just being the invasion but from this person's POV, because after all, the nature of this invasion should be that Skrulls are all over the place. But having a crossover like this raises the stakes a bit, so it's great that it's being incorporated into it. Like with Incredible Hercules, the marriage of a unique take with strong character provides a welcome breath of fresh air for this event. In fact, this is the deciding factor. Well, this and New Avengers. Remember we left off New Avengers with something strange happening during the Skrull Spider-Woman retelling? Well, our next issue doesn't even finish that story. No, it's more piddling around the dimensions. So, this is the deciding factor for me. We're going to hit the brakes on this reading order here, and I've gone and hunted down a proper one. It took a while, but I think it's going to be worth it so we can tell what the hell is going on. Next time there's a whole bunch of fill-in as we try to get back up to speed, but I think it'll be worth it because I don't know about you, but I'm tired at this point of the invasion being secret because it's too random to try to follow.